We're going to start off by talking about writing assignment number 2, and we'll look at that on Canvas. And on this, you'll go to writing assignment number 2, and the following document will open. So writing assignment 2, remember, follows the same format as writing assignment 1. The only difference is obviously the 5 paragraphs. So you must upload your 5 homework writing assignments to the Canvas discussions under writing assignment 2 before your final exam start time. Do not create a new thread, add to the existing thread. So again, on Canvas, let's take a look at where you're going to upload. So under discussions, you'll go to writing assignment number 2. And it's not available at the moment. You know how to upload. You just attach the file and post. And the 5 assignments are from the supplemental book. That was units 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. You must upload good copies of your paragraphs in Word format, not PDF, not Hangul, not any other format. So remember, good copies means it's not the first and only time you've written it, it's at least the second draft. You have to spend some time and effort to improving your writing. Lines must be double spaced. Put your name, student number, and number of the homework. For example, 6 for Unit 6, 7 for Unit 7, etc. Put this in the file name as well. So name, student number, and number of the homework goes on the document and in the file name as well. Your professor will choose one of your homework assignments to be graded. It's worth 10% of your final grade. The grading will be based on: did you follow the instructions? Did you use appropriate paragraph elements, as well as the grammar we've studied in the class? Penalties for lateness and not following instructions. No writing assignments will be accepted after the exam begins. If you submit your first draft, you'll receive a penalty of 20%. And if you submit the wrong topic, you'll receive a minimum penalty of 50%. So that's information about writing assignment number 2. Let's move on to looking at information about your final exam. And again, this is on Canvas. So if you go to Pages, you will see final exam information, and the following document will open. And as you know, your final exam will be under the Canvas quizzes, under final exam. Let me show you where that is briefly. And here under quizzes, you'll see where it says final exam, not available at the moment, but it will be when you do your exam. And your exam is going to be, again, at home. You'll do your exam in the comfort of your own home. And it's week 15, class 2. Check the date and start time on the Canvas announcement, and you will have 1 hour to complete your exam. It's worth 35% of your final grade. You have to know all the material studied from Great Paragraphs 5th edition, units 6 to 9, and Great Paragraphs 4th edition portions, and everything else studied in the second half of the semester. Now below, let's take a look at the elements in greater detail. So let's look at the different elements. We'll look at the grammar first. You should have no problem using quotation marks appropriately. Remember, whenever you borrow information from a source directly, you need to put quotations around that information and also indicate where that information came from. Adjective clauses describe nouns. They go after nouns. They always contain a subject and verb. We use who for people, that for things. Time or transition words. These can go at the beginning or end of a sentence. And remember, if you start a sentence, you need to have a comma after those time or transition words. Commas, shouldn't have any issue with that. We talked about a number of situations. Most often we have the comma in a compound sentence before the conjunction, in a complex sentence after the dependent clause when it starts a sentence, in a list of 2 or more words, we have the comma after the first word. When we start a sentence with place or time, we have a comma after that. If we start a sentence with a transition word, like however, or therefore, or thus, we have a comma. Prepositional phrases, we have a comma after that when they are used to start a sentence. And we also have it to separate extra information, like when we have an unimportant adjective clause, we put commas around that. Adjectives describe nouns. Remember, they go before nouns. They can also go after a linking verb. The most common linking verb is be verb. If we have more than one adjective before a noun, we have to think about the type of adjective. If they fall into the category of different types of adjectives, remember, we have to remember the order. So a size adjective goes before a color adjective. A number adjective goes before all of those. And if we have adjectives that are the same type, in other words, for example, if we have 2 opinion adjectives, remember, we have to have something between them. Most often it's a comma or a conjunction. So location prepositions or place phrases, remember, these go at the end of the sentence. In some cases, such as if we have a there is or there are sentence, we can put it at the beginning, in which case there's a comma after that. Word forms, you should be able to identify a word as being a noun, verb, adjective, or adverb. Combining sentences, you should be able to take multiple sentences and reduce them into a single sentence. Remember, it's important to be economical with words as well as sentences. Now, if we look at the paragraph writing elements, a definition paragraph. Remember, its purpose is to define something. And in our topic sentence, we need to have a definition as well as an opinion about the definition. You can use a dictionary definition, in which case you must name the dictionary and put quotations around the definition. Or you can use your own definition, in which case you don't have to worry about that. Sometimes we provide examples in that paragraph to help explain the definition. A process paragraph, remember, that demonstrates a process. It explains how to do something, and we do that in chronological order. So the sentence sequence is very important. So we have words like first, second, third, and so on. Finally, last. Descriptive paragraphs, they describe. And we use adjectives that are related to the senses. Remember? Sight, taste, touch, hearing, smell. And in our topic sentence of a descriptive paragraph, remember, we must have something related to the senses. You can talk about senses in a more general way, or you can focus on a specific sense. Opinion paragraphs, remember, this is where you provide an opinion. It's a personal belief, and you try to convince the reader to agree with your opinion. So you try to use facts to support it, because facts are generally accepted truths, and they make your opinion more credible. Sometimes you might not be able to use 3 facts, in which case you may have to use an opinion to support, but facts are better. Narrative paragraph, remember, that tells a story, and a story always has a beginning, a middle, and an end. In the beginning, we have background information in the topic sentence. We always know who's in the story and a preview of what's going to happen in the middle. In the following sentences, we may also have information about where the story takes place or when the story takes place, but that information may also be in the topic sentence. The middle is the interesting part. That's where everything happens, the event, action, conflict, or problem occurs. And the end is the result or solution of the middle. So sometimes we have a happy ending and sometimes we don't. Sometimes the writer learns from the experience, makes a comment on it. The concluding sentence in a narrative paragraph doesn't have to be exactly the same as the topic sentence, but we do need to mention the event that occurred in the middle, and that creates that connection between the two. You should be okay with all of this. So for example, you should make sure that you're able to indent the first line in a paragraph. You should be able to use articles appropriately and so on. You will have 1 hour to complete the exam. Once the time is up, the exam is finished and you will not be able to continue. So it's very important to use a secured wired connection to complete the exam. There's only one opportunity to complete the exam, so prepare a contingency plan. If cheating occurs, an automatic F grade will be assigned. So that is information about your final exam. Let's do some review and practice. I'd like you to take out your Great Paragraphs 5th edition and turn to page 133. And on that page, you're going to do activity 13, which is an editing activity. And you're also going to do activity number 14, a sentence combining activity. And that is where you reduce multiple sentences into a single sentence. And then you're going to go to page 169, activity number 15. This is another editing. And then one more on page 170. Activity 17, and this is another sentence combining activity. So you are going to pause the video, work on those 4 activities, and then resume the video when you're ready to continue. Please pause the video right now. Let's take up activity 13 on page 133, starting with number 1. First, make sure that all of the sentences in the paragraph have a verb. Comma after first, has to have. 2. When you are ready to purchase your ticket, enter your credit card number. Change 4 to 2, to purchase. Comma after ticket. 3. There are several steps you should take to protect your information on the internet. So have to are, should take, on the internet. 4. To answer a multiple choice question, read all the choices before changing your answer, or before you choose your answer. So change reading to read. Choose becomes choosing or you choose. 5. Finally, save your information before you close a file because your computer may not save it automatically. Comma after finally, no comma after file, may not save. Now let's move on to activity 14 on that same page 133. So this is where we had to combine the sentences into a single one. in the shortest way possible is preferable. Let's look at number 1. Second, add the chopped onions, tomato slices, and black pepper to the spinach that you cooked. And that is a complex sentence. There's the adjective clause, which is a dependent clause. There's the independent clause. 2. If your flight is canceled, you should call the airline to see if they have already put you on another flight. Once again, there's another complex sentence. There's the dependent clause. And there's the independent. 3. When tourists arrive in the United States, they must first go through immigration and then collect their bags and go through customs. Another complex. Let's move on to page 169, activity 15. And once again, this is an editing activity. 1. On March 27th, 1964, Alaska had a severe earthquake that caused 139 deaths. A severe earthquake. Cause becomes caused. 2. The first of the famous Star Wars movies was released to the public on May 25th, 1977. Movies on May 25th. 3. When it was time to board my flight for Tokyo, I could not find my boarding pass. To board. Could not find. 4. The airport in San Francisco often experiences long flight delays because of fog. So, experiences because of fog. 5. Alaska became a state in 1959. Became in 1959. And now let's move on to the last one on the very next page, 170, activity number 17, another sentence combining activity. 1. She was born in a small town in Central Florida on January 18th 2000. And that is a simple sentence. 2. My high school graduation was certainly the most important day in my life. Another simple sentence. 3. My best friend and I were sitting on a train in Frankfurt that was going to Paris when our long nightmare began. And we have a complex sentence there, obviously. So let's move on, and we're going to take a look at a paragraph from our previous unit and see if we can improve it. So remember, this is a narrative paragraph which tells a story. Think about the necessary characteristics in that. And at the moment, it's single space just to fit it on one screen. So take a look at everything. I'll give you a moment, and then we'll talk about this paragraph. All right, let's go through the paragraph, and we'll look at the topic sentence. Is that a good topic sentence for a narrative paragraph? Does it tell us who's in the story? Yes, it's the writer. Do we have a preview of what's going to happen in the middle? Yeah, something about a first presentation. And we also have additional information, when the person was a freshman. I'll fix that, one word. So that is a good topic sentence for a narrative paragraph. Let's continue with the story. And remember, we have a lead up to the middle, and the middle is where the interesting thing happens. Obviously, it's going to be something with the presentation the writer couldn't forget. So there, the writer starts the story, gives us a little more background information, when the writer started school. And we're leading up to the event. And we're getting closer to the event here. And here we have the middle of the story, where the event starts to happen. And it was hinted at here and then indicated here. So the writer was extremely nervous during this presentation, and that continues there. And then here we get to the end of the presentation. That is the result or the solution of what occurred in the middle. So obviously this tells us it wasn't a happy ending. The writer was embarrassed, and that's the writer's purpose for telling this story about an embarrassing experience. There's always a purpose in telling a story. And remember, the concluding sentence doesn't have to be exactly the same as the topic sentence, as long as we mention the event that occurred in the middle, and sometimes the writer learns from the experience. So there is mention of the event in the middle, presentation. It's right there as well. So that creates that connection. And this is where the writer has learned something and tries to do something from the experience. So that follows the format of a narrative paragraph very well. And remember, the verb tense consistency, most often we use the simple past because we're talking about events that started and finished in the past. This is okay, that's fine. We have that once. But overall, the verb tense consistency is good. Let's look at sentence variety. What type of sentence is that? Simple, compound, or complex? That's a complex sentence. There's the dependent clause, there's the independent clause. What type of sentence is this? That's a compound sentence. Two sentences joined by a comma and a conjunction. There's one sentence. There's another joined by this comma and conjunction. This type of sentence right here, that's a simple sentence. So the writer has really good variety in this narrative paragraph. So normally narrative paragraphs tend to be a little bit longer. You know, we can go up to 14 sentences, but here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the writer did the minimum amount. So the writer was very economical with the number of sentences used to tell the story. How about the title? Is that good? It's okay. It gives us a little preview of what's going to happen. We might include an adjective in front of the presentation if we wish. First line is indented. Remember that we need to double space. I purposely kept it single space. That's double spacing. And remember with the title, it blends in with the text. It's not bold. It's not bigger. It's exactly the same as the text. Okay, so it blends in with it. It doesn't have to stand out. Today, we're going to look at something that you experienced a long time ago, way back in the first week of the semester. Now, if you remember, you looked at a paragraph that contained a number of errors, and you were asked to try to correct as many errors as possible. And I said at the time that if you were to look at that same paragraph at the end of the semester, it would be much easier for you because you will have learned all the skills necessary to correct the paragraph. So today, you're going to have that exact opportunity to redo the paragraph you did way back from the very first week of the semester. The paragraph itself is available right here on Canvas. If you go to Pages, and you'll see Diagnostic Paragraph, and you'll click that, and you'll see what it looks like. And you are going to edit this. You're going to write down suggestions to improve it. You don't have to copy the whole thing. If you just want to write down the improvements that are required, the edits, that's fine. If you want to write on top of the document, that's fine as well. Entirely your choice. You can pause the video and look at it. And here is the paragraph as well. So once again, you don't have to write down everything here. You can just write down the corrections that need to be conducted to correct the paragraph. And once again, you'll have some time to work on this, and we'll take it up after you have looked at the paragraph and corrected as much as you possibly can. So at this point, you may pause the video and work on it. So please pause the video. So let's take up this paragraph and we'll go through all of the areas, starting with, of course, the fact that this paragraph has no title, and we need to have a title. And our title should be as short as possible and contain important topic information. So why don't we just go with I'll just copy this and put it right up here. As you know, the title is centered above the paragraph. And we don't make it bigger, we don't put it in bold, we don't underline it or italicize it. It has to be the same style as the text. It just needs to blend in. The first line of this paragraph is not indented. We need to indent the first line and only the first line. City is part of the name. That should be capitalized. There's another proper noun that should be capitalized. Jeju Island. And yes, you can spell Jeju with a J if you want. That's okay too. The rest of this sentence is fine. There are no problems with it. But we should remember that a topic sentence, which is the first sentence, needs to explain what the whole paragraph is about. Is this the topic sentence? No, it's not. So it shouldn't be here. And is this information necessary? Since we all know where Jeju is, do we need to even include this information? Not at all. This would only be for someone who's not familiar with Korea. So, for example, we know that this is the topic sentence. That explains what the paragraph is about. So let's put that there. We'll still keep this sentence here temporarily. We need to capitalize the first word in the sentence, my. We need to capitalize Korea. And of course, Jeju. And this sentence obviously doesn't have a verb. We need to have a verb. And there it is. So that is a topic sentence. This sentence would only be included if the audience is not familiar with it. Since we all are, we don't even need to have that sentence. So let's just get rid of it. Let's look at the first supporting idea. Does that support the topic sentence? Yeah, it does. But once again, we have some grammar problems and some punctuation problems as well. We have so, and remember, so is used as a conjunction to join sentences. So we need a comma before so. There's a problem here with subject-verb agreement. Many people, that's plural, so we have to use are. And this is not necessary. We know we're talking about the city, so we can just eliminate that. Remember, less is better, it's more economical. We know that we have to have at least 3 supporting ideas. So indicate the first supporting idea, we should use first. We're providing reasons, and whenever you provide reasons, you should use these words. Remember the comma after it as well. Let's look at the second sentence. Does that support the topic sentence? Not at all. It's completely unrelated. It's not talking about Jeju. It's talking about Cheongju. Let's look at that. Does that support the topic sentence? Yes. But once again, we have some problems. We know we have so here as a conjunction to join sentences, so we need to have a comma before that. And after the be verb, we have these 2 adjectives. We need to have a conjunction between those 2 adjectives, warm and humid. Now in this paragraph, we happen to have more than 3 supporting ideas. So let's put something in front of that to indicate it is a supporting idea. So we use second. Moving on to this sentence. Let's correct the grammar first, and then we'll see if it's related to the topic sentence. We need to say there are. This is called a dummy subject. We need to have something before the verb. And that, of course, supports the topic sentence. It says something nice about Jeju. And we should once again indicate it's one of our supporting ideas. So in this case, we'll put third. And this one, let's look at the problems and then we'll see if it's related. We know we have a severe problem with the verb tense here. You cannot use this in the present continuous because this meaning is non-continuous or non-physical. And it goes against our verb tense consistency. Has. Simple present. So that sentence there is related. It provides an example of this. So that's why it's nice to use these words if you have supporting sentences that support other supporting sentences. Moving on to this. Everything's good about it, and yes, in fact, it supports the topic sentence. So here we can see that we have at least 4 supporting ideas. When you have more than 3, it's good to use these ordinal numbers. When you have 3, you can use first, next, in addition, finally, or last. But if you have more than 3, you should use ordinal numbers like this. So first, second, third, fourth. And the word food can be count or non-count. Here, it's okay to use the count. Looking at this, it's saying something nice that exists there. And of course, we know that we need to have a period. I is a subject, remember is a verb. We need to have a period right there. Otherwise, that would have been a run-on sentence, 2 sentences with nothing in between. So that's why we need a period there. And remember, if a word is not a native English word, it's not commonly known or used in English, you have to italicize it like that. So, is this our last supporting idea? No. So, we're going to put another ordinal number here. So, we'll go with 5th to indicate our 5th supporting idea. And we know here we have to capitalize I. Pronoun is always capitalized. And we'll correct everything here before we determine whether it's related or not. And we have a problem with the verb tense. We cannot use the present perfect here. We have to use the simple past. You cannot use the present perfect when you talk about a specific time in the past. That's where we use the simple past. Okay, it's all good. And yes, that supports the topic sentence, but we need to indicate it's our last supporting idea, so we can use last or finally. Let's take a look at the concluding sentence, and we'll see if it has the same idea as a topic sentence, but written differently. And it has the same idea, but it's not written differently. And we also don't have something to indicate it's the concluding sentence. So why don't we just change that to 4 for these reasons. Remember, we need to have a comma right there. And you can see it's my favorite city in Korea, Jeju, my favorite city in Korea, Jeju. Let's get rid of all of that. We know we have to mention this and that. So let's use Jeju as a subject. For these reasons, Jeju is the best city in Korea. Exact same meaning as this, but written differently. And we know that our paragraph needs to be double spaced, like so. Now let's go one more in order to fit the whole thing on one page. Let's look at the number of sentences. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's okay. We have 9 sentences here. That's within our 8 to 12 sentence range for a paragraph. We need to have at least 8, maximum of 12, except for a narrative paragraph where we can go up to 14. What type of paragraph do you think this one is? This is an opinion paragraph. Let's look at sentence variety. See if we have simple, compound, complex sentences. Right here, we have a compound sentence, 2 sentences joined by a comma and a conjunction. There's one sentence. There's the other, joined by this comma and conjunction. In fact, the preceding sentence is also compound. And this sentence right here is a simple sentence. So we have variety in this paragraph. And in fact, we also have this one, which is a complex sentence. There's the independent clause, and there's the dependent clause. So good variety in this paragraph. And in terms of sentence variety, we have a lot of be verb, but everything here is in the simple present, except for this. We don't have a choice. We have to use simple past once, and that's okay. There's no problem with that. So good verb tense consistency. So that is now a good paragraph. And this should have been easier for you doing it now as opposed to way back in the first week of the semester, because you've learned a lot since then on how to make a good paragraph. So as you know, next class, there are two things that are going to occur before the start of your final exam. You are to submit your 5 paragraphs for your second writing assignment on the discussion forum on Blackboard, and this is before you start your final exam. Remember, your final exam schedule, date, and time is on the announcement section of Blackboard, so it tells you when you're doing your final exam, and that is also on Blackboard. And there's one more thing I need to remind you of, and that is about the Korea University's relative grading curve. And depending on the number of students, the maximum number of students that can earn A or A+, if we have more than 20 students, it's 30%. If it's less than 20, 35% maximum. Again, the grading curve applies to A pluses all the way down to B. If we have more than 20 students, 60% maximum. Less than 20 students, 70% maximum. Okay. At the same time, if there are more than 20 students, 40% minimum must have C+ grade or lower. If there are less than 20 students, a minimum of 30% C+ grade or lower. Okay, so we have a very strict grading curve that we have to follow. And also an A or A+ means you're perfect or near perfect, not easy to achieve. So when you receive your final grade, it's been very carefully calculated and your final grade will not change. If you have a question, for example, about your second writing assignment, you can send me an email. Professor, I received my final grade. Could you please tell me my score for my second writing assignment? No problem, I can do that. That's after you receive your final grades. And that is all for today. Good luck on your second writing assignment and your final exam. Have a great day.